I have to convince myself.
Well, let's.
I don't know because I think the hardest thing, right, is with my marriage.
Mhm.
And I just am not to where I'm just ready to go see ya. But
Okay,
there's
so
always that underlying thing that I think that's what needs to happen.
so Amanda, we just started recording, and you're touching on something right now that is so prominent that once you see the sickness in the church, we start to see it in our relationships. We're not quite sure how to navigate it. And like you just mentioned, I'm not ready to jump ship because I don't know where I'm at. And it's really to me a really good idea to get real grounded in yourself before you make big life decisions like that. But what Todd was just saying, and it didn't get recorded. Todd, do you want to explain that? What you just said, you were
Which
talking about the zodiac, which I think is
oh,
gorgeous language for what's going on in our life.
yeah, so just to kind of translate what she said just before we were recording, she has a lot of Scorpio energy and a lot of eighth house energy, um, which is the area of personal transformation, death, and rebirth. So it's death to the ego and birth of the soul themes. So what she's seeing in the external reality is dissociation with prior community beliefs and relationships. So everything is trying to reconfigure, but personally, she's got to manage this internally. And the way it happens is you're going to let go. You're going to shed, but part of you wants to cling to what you know, feel some sort of control,
Security.
familiarity, just predictability, all these kind of things. And the reality is that your match between your ego life that you built, just your mental construct, and your soul's life, they're completely not in balance. So your soul is like, enough. We're taking over. It's time for you to be you. Like it or not, hang on, let
Yeah.
go. And it
Yeah.
takes a while for us to adjust to.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then it affects every layer of life. And then your intimate relationship is going to be getting very close to the core of who you are, how you operate in the world. So there's a saying, uh, as above, so below, and that goes in reverse too. So
Mhm.
you're in a period of descent that is really ascension.
I can feel it for sure. And then like the interesting thing about like my husband's a Pisces with a Scorpio moon and a Scorpio rising.
Mm-hmm. And we've got Saturn going retrograde in Pisces, kind of dissolving everything.
Yeah. So it's interesting because like astrologically it's like we're compatible, but I also see the things that he's holding on to. And like I can't do his transformation. I can only do mine.
You can only do yours.
And yeah, I hope I hope he comes along, but who knows? Like I don't know. It's just
That compatibility thing isn't, because there's the chart and then there's our level of consciousness.
yeah,
So if you're
for sure.
leveling up and he's not,
Yeah.
this is a solo journey ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, at some point he's going to have to because of the family dynamics and with the farm and all that and like and stuff is literally being ripped out from under him as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, but
From
it's
the
that disparity of he's praying to a God that I don't believe in and I don't and still ascribing to a belief system that I don't think is true, but it's like, but we don't talk about that, so that's fine.
and
He
he's
lets,
obviously afraid to speak up and man up, and say, this is where I stand, this is where my boundaries are, this is what I'll tolerate, this is how it's going to be for him and you. I mean, he's obviously not stepped up into that energy.
yeah. I think he does pretty good with me to a point, but he doesn't when it comes to his dad and his grandpa because everything is tied to them and the farm and everything else. And
Which is everything.
yeah, those were the first three men that I identified that had more control over my life, safety, and future. And then you just go backwards to a bishop, a stake president. I can't,
Right.
of all these men telling me how to be a woman. Yeah.
So there,
Or how you can live, where you can live,
Hmm.
how you dress.
Yeah. Yeah. And like my husband really like, it's like find a job, go find something that makes you happy, right? Like we've got to try and figure out this plan where we can turn this ship around together. And I finally said, so if I found something so meaningful for me that required you to follow me somewhere, would you come? And basically it was, well, if I could have the farm paid off in a year, then maybe, but he wouldn't give up anything for me.
That's telling too.
well, and it's hard to accept.
And I've given up everything
Yeah.
for him for almost 29 years.
Yeah. It is a hard thing to come to this realization, but right now I'm seeing a spark of fire in your eyes. You can hear it in your voice. You're starting to emerge, and you'll either shut it down and you'll acquiesce, or you're gonna fucking rise above. And you get to make that choice. Either choice is hard.
Yeah.
Hard is what you're looking at. So you'll either fight for that marriage or you'll fight for you, and the marriage will get better, or you'll fight for you and you're going to have to leave.
Yep.
And this is at the core of something I firmly believe now, that your fight for your authenticity is the most important. Everything else shakes out. It doesn't matter what's attached to it, your job, your relationship, it does not matter. Authenticity comes first.
Yeah.
And that takes courage, because you've outsourced, and we all do this. We outsource our power. We outsource who has authority over us. And Wendy and I talked about this, and we decided to call this From Saint to Sovereign, with that very principle in mind, that this is a journey from moving from outsourcing everything, including authority about our lives, our morality, to bringing that inside, to bringing that internally, and having that journey of growth of the self. And unfortunately, like Jesus said, if you've got to leave your father and your mother, and Carl Jung would call this individuation. It's the journey of becoming your authentic self despite the collective. And it's terrifying without a sense of what's going on.
Yeah.
Without context, without a roadmap. And Wendy and I have talked extensively, and like, this is the kind of support we want to provide, because we have years of experience going through these exact same things. I lost everything.
But I,
Not once, more than once. And I'm still here, and I would never change a thing.
yeah, it's true. And basically what we find ourselves doing is stepping into space that is so unfamiliar. And it really is, you can go back. This is what I've heard so many times, and it's actually a thing that lets me step out into the darkness. And that is, you don't have to step forward. You don't have to do anything. You can continue what's going on. And then I look at that, I'm like, no, I
No.
can't, because your soul is like, no, it will kill you. And it does cause depression. It
Well, it
does
was going to
cause,
kill me.
yeah, because it's so terrifying because it's unknown territory. And a lot of times we're operating off of the trauma and our conditioning and our programming of the past. And we don't know how our brain operates. So we're not sure how to soothe ourselves so that we can pull in something entirely different. We just know that our soul is longing for that growth and that expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And I explain it like it's like the dragonfly right before it emerges out of its nymph body from the water. It's three times, its dragonfly body is three times the size of its little nymph body. And there's pressure inside of there there's something trying to emerge, and it's oscillating and it's uncomfortable until that dragonfly knows if it goes out onto the reed into the sunlight, it risks getting eaten. It risks being destroyed. But it has to have the sunlight in order to finish its transformation. And so as it risks going out there on the reed to sunbathe and let the rest of its emergence happen, it realizes, first it cracks the top of the head and it comes out and its eyes are bigger and it has wings and it's unfolding this huge thorax. And now I'm trying to breathe in oxygen rather than the water. And it's just a whole different transformation. And it happens really fast with the dragonfly, but for us, it's a slow process of learning how to exist in an entirely different world and letting go of that aquatic life, especially when everyone around you is living in that aquatic life and you don't have too many models of dragonflies flying around. You just know that I can't stop this process if I tried. And if I do try, it will literally kill my soul.
It will kill me.
Yeah.
And that makes it sound really terrifying.
Yeah. It does.
But at the same time, it is totally an organic, natural process. I mean, this is really about becoming an adult.
Yeah. It sounds terrifying and liberating at the same time. Like they both exist,
right.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's just like, it feels so weird to be like, I still just like, who am I as a person and as a woman and like as me? That's not, but to do that for how I was raised and how I was married for so long is, well, but that's selfish.
Yeah.
And so, I was listening to a thing and they were saying for women, she was talking about it and she was just like, women don't need so much an ego death. They need to learn how to be a full person because we were never allowed to be a full person.
Yes.
And think about ourselves and what we want. And I was like, yeah. And I've been trying to figure that out for years.
Well, and look at the difference. Like I just had, not to get too personal, but someone close to me pass away. And what's said at her eulogy and in her funeral is like, she never complained and she never, she was always looking after everyone else. And she, she never really had a life of her own. She always, she lived her life for everybody else, which is what we're taught, is to self-abandon. How to practice self-abandoning is an LDS women's curriculum in the church. And then imagine that next to a woman who's actually stepped into her power, has broken away from everything that she was being tethered to that was holding her back. And she's living a full life, full purpose, gifts, face forward, and impacting the world. That two different eulogies going on. And that's the power of women that has been drained from us through this practice of self-abandon.
And yet when you try to get yourself back, then the people around you freak out because like, no, you're being selfish. Oh, it's all about you all of a sudden. You're just kind of like, but it's been all about you for the last how long? Like, no, it's my turn.
Yeah. Yep.
And the reality is we train people how to treat us. And so by living the way we live, they expect that. And so they're going to resist our change because it benefits them. They're used to it. And, it's old crabs in a bucket thing. They'll pull the one trying to climb out back down.
And that's like my daughter. So she's got her bachelor's degree in family studies and is working on getting in grad school for MFT. So it's really funny because she'd bring stuff up to me and I would be like, well, no, I'm trying to be a person now. And so she can actually see when she's trying to hold me into that box. And so she can catch herself and we can talk about it. But then she just gets really mad and she's like, I just want to hit my brother over the side of his head and tell him knock it off. And then she's like, and then with Dad, you're just going to have to take that to marriage counseling. It's like, well, yeah. But.
And so the other thing that pops to mind is anytime when we're going through that, all we have to reference that we know is the past. So we can't those references no longer help. If
Yeah.
anything, they show us where it doesn't work going forward in our life. So we have to make decisions on, how am I going to live? Who am I going to be? What is real to me? What am I going to accept? What am I not going to accept? Where do I draw the line? What do I insist upon? And that is a journey of self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, that authenticity leads to a place of giving, sharing, healing, anything but selfish. But you've got to redeem yourself from the opinions of others
Mm-hmm.
and the mandates of others to claim yourself so that you can be who you really are.
Yeah, it's
And they'll tell you you're bad. They'll tell you you're wrong. They'll tell you
Yeah.
everything from your old programming.
Mine has a lot to do with abandoning, like fear of being abandoned. And, that's one of the 5 core wounds that we experience as
Yeah.
human beings, is that fear of being abandoned. And so you're dealing with being abandoned by the tribe. That's primal stuff in your genetics, being abandoned by the tribe. And you're abandoned by a partner, abandoned by anybody close to you. And which is why we practice self-abandoning, so that we can stay clinged to all of that and not be abandoned. Realize what's happening in the soul level is you're realizing I'm abandoned I've abandoned myself. And if you don't continue abandoning you, this is what others might say, if you don't continue abandoning you, then you're going to abandon me. And so everybody's afraid of this abandonment. And we're twisted in this abandonment energy, and someone has to climb out of it. And you better believe, just like a bucket, how do they explain that analogy where you got the bucket of crabs and one tries to get out and they get pulled down? That analogy happens over and over and over again until you just go, I am done abandoning myself. But it's hard to know what that even means, abandon yourself, if you're not quite sure what yourself is. And so, like, writing down your new set of values and putting a hierarchy to those values, as much as I am a protester against hierarchy, I do have a hierarchy of values so that I know how my internal world works. And also knowing what it is you want. What do you want to create? It's like accessing a dormant seed within you that's been so shut down and so insulated. You have to climb through it to figure, what does Amanda want? Because I've been wanting what everybody else wants and what the church wants for me, thinking that's going to bring me this sense of security. And what you're realizing, your soul is like, no more. This is not the program. This is not what's working. And so it's like you keep climbing in there. What do I want? What lights me up? And it starts even just, what's my favorite color? What is my favorite thing to do? What makes me feel peaceful? What makes me feel joyful? What makes me feel excited? And just getting to know yourself at a super intimate level and saying, okay, what is it? What pisses me off? It's important. A lot of times that's how we find our passion and our purpose. I know that I found my purpose on what absolutely enrages me. And my purpose is to liberate the captive minds. I am here to help us untangle from all of these things. Nothing brings me more joy than to see somebody untangle this and reach into their soul and claim their sovereign self. I'm in the process of reclamation. That lights me up. Like, I couldn't take that passion from me if I tried. And that's when I know I've found my soul's calling and what I want to do. And yeah, it gives me the fire to say no to this and no to that and no to him and no to her. And you'd be surprised about how many people don't have access to me in my life anymore because it drains me and I lose myself.
Mhm.
So
What, can we get an amen? Can we get a hallelujah?
I just, I have friends. I don't know if it's like our stage and age thing, but we're just, as women, we're like, there's something that's been lit and
Hmm.
we're ready to carve out a place for us. I just want you to know we're not alone. The women join together, and there's men like Todd. This is why I really wanted to introduce him to the group, and hopefully we have more men show up, because there is that balance is there. It can be there. And they're going through a lot of transition too. They've been
Hmm.
entangled in the virus of patriarchy too, and so
Yeah.
and it's hard to find your way out of a world that's been you've been the center of attention, and everything has been geared towards your comfort and your and your ability to control or rise up. That's different, and when it's just feeling like equalizing feels like they're losing power. And I don't have room to speak to this.
Yeah.
Maybe Todd has far more room to speak to that. But I can only imagine for a woman, it feels like we've been down here, suppressed, self-abandoning. And it's a little bit more exciting for us to rise up and say, I'm not doing it anymore. And I'm ready to rise up. And it might be a little bit easier. I don't even know how to put this into perspective than to feel like you're losing your power as a man. What are your thoughts on that, Todd?
Um,
Yes.
well, I think men are going through the same thing, but let's just extend patriarchy and take it out of just a religious context, and let's put it
Hmm.
in governmental context, corporate context. Like, so men are responsible for providing, earning, and basically they've got to give their life to the patriarchy as well,
Hmm.
right? And so they've got to sacrifice and abandon their dreams, desires, and authentic self to fill a role. So at the fundamental level, archetypally, we're doing the same thing, right? Now we're disadvantaged and advantaged in different ways, but so this is all rebalancing because the world that we need to live in requires that we go through this death rebirth because it no longer works. We can't, the earth can't sustain it. Our souls won't tolerate it. And we're all going through this individually and collectively, but we're so involved in our little micro world of ourself that we're unaware that this is happening everywhere.
Collectively, collectively,
Um,
we are in the middle of a shift.
we are in the middle of a shift, and just what comes to mind about Wendy talking about her passion and her gift, and mine is exactly the same thing. And why? Because we fucking went through it, right? And that possibility wouldn't even exist had we not, right? Like we wouldn't have found our calling, our passion, our truest desires had we not gone through that process. And from some certain level it feels negative, overwhelming, oppositional, adversarial, but it's really so we can be who we truly are. So it's something really beautiful, even though it feels difficult, yucky, and terrifying.
Yeah, I would I would love to hear any of your thoughts. Like what goes through? I know it goes through my mind when I was going through this part, but like what you're like right present with it. Like
Yeah.
what comes up for you? Speak for everyone else that's going through exactly what you're going through.
Well, honestly, it's just like to figure out like where I belong and what my roles are, right? I have adult children, but I have grandchildren. Part of me honestly just wants to walk away from everything, disengage from everybody, and go figure myself out. But then I have these little grandkids that how do I show up for? Because I have my memories that I grew up with of what my grandparents were in my life. Like, you know what I mean? And so it's like, so how do I give my kids and grandkids some of those things, but still be true to me? Because I don't know how. I haven't ever seen it. And the one great grandma that I had, that when she got divorced, like my grandpa was an adult when my grandma divorced, his mom divorced. And the things that I heard is from my aunt, right? That, it's the black sheep of the family of how much of like how, her grandma traveled the world, didn't give a crap, you know, was unconventional, but it's all in that taboo context, right? From the aunt that grew up, went back east, lived in the Virgin Islands, didn't marry in the church and, whatever, it is the liberal. And then so the only context I've ever learned about because she died when I was 8. My great grandma had a stroke. And I just remember Christmas parties at her house. So I didn't know the crazy globetrotter who just, left the conventional bullcrap and lived her life, other than the lens that I get from my aunt. And but it's like, but I feel that. It's like I
So
just
is the concern that you have is because your grandkids are being raised in the church? Just want to
well,
clarify.
no, well, no, it's because it's just because I want to have just an amazing relationship with my grandkids, that they can just be like, she was always there. We never questioned her love, um, that kind of thing. But their parents are toxic as whatever. There's My son is an alcoholic. But yes, they are being raised in the church. But I feel like I can counteract that because I'm Professor Grammy and we practice magic. Um, I can do it subtly, not so, like whatever, because yeah, like because my son has called my daughter on multiple occasions, like, I don't like how mom does blah blah blah, and I'm gonna like tell her if she doesn't this, then she can't. Then my daughter's like, you just need to pull your head out of your butt. Like, mom isn't gonna go behind your back and not, teach your kids stuff you don't want them to know, but you just need to quit being stupid and judging mom, because go look in the mirror.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you raised your kids to be reasonable. But like what I'm hearing underneath all that is if I become myself, I won't have a good relationship with my grandkids. I will
Or
have to
just my
give
or
that
my
up.
family. Yeah.
So what else is possible?
Yeah.
What if you will have the greatest connection, the most authentic influence on your grandkids because of the fight that you go through to reclaim yourself? Because the only relationship you can have with them right now is the tiptoeing. I have to do this and I have to do that. But what if your most organic, your most authentic self is so loving and accepting and so contrary to what they're experiencing in their own life that it will be a memory of that grandma, even though you had her only up until the
Mhm.
age of 8? It will be an influence on them that says, I am acceptable and I am lovable and I don't have to fit within the box, and with me, you are safe. With me, you get to be who you are. And when they're little, the parents might be a little coddly and they're a little bit more concerned about your influence if they're afraid that it's going to go contrary to what they're trying to teach their kids. But I don't know one parent on the planet that doesn't want their kids to feel loved and accepted. And it's totally cool to let your kids know up front, just say, I never want to be somebody who is going to interfere with your parenting. um, how
Yeah.
do you want me to show up? To just have those really vulnerable conversations. Say, this is the kind of grandma that I want to be.
Hmm.
Is there anything in there that feels threatening to you? And just have those conversations. And
Well,
like,
I just feel like for me, I just feel like I'd be abandoning them
so
because because like I said, part of me just wants to just get away from everybody. And so then I'm not there to go, let's have Grammy sleepover, or I mean, I'm also not daycare, so very rarely they'll call in a pinch and I can help watch once in a while, but I'm not, dedicated daycare because I don't want to be, because I want to be, I have my own life, so there's that boundary. But I'm afraid that if I go find myself too much, that I will like I won't be around.
Yeah.
okay, so reach inside, is that true? If I reclaim myself, I won't be around for anybody.
I mean, it could be because I might just leave and then I don't have enough money to come back and travel and visit, and I know nobody has any money to do that. Like,
Okay, so you're starting to list all those fears. If I become my normal, not my normal, my authentic, most original soul that I've come here to be, I won't have relationships. I won't have money. I won't have this. This is what at a deep level you've convinced yourself of because of your programming, your experience, the church influence. All of these things have convinced you that if I be me, I will lose it all. And I'm here to let you know that you won't lose it all because when you find yourself, there's nothing else better to gain. And that's when you start organically connecting intimately. That's when you start generating resources that feel more effortless. That's when you tap into wisdom that right now is not available to you. And it won't be available until you're ready to take the leap. And it is terrifying. But what if becoming your most organic, authentic self means you get deeper and real relationships? That money comes to you effortlessly in a way that you, using your gifts, is changing the world. You transforming your story and your experience becomes a catapult into a whole other timeline that you are supposed to be living. When I say supposed to be, not that I don't want there to be any shame in there, like you're somewhere
no.
where you shouldn't be, because right now is exactly where you should be.
It's,
You are at this space. But it's if you were living that authentic life, you would have peace, you would have connection, you would have clarity, and you would have direction, you would have purpose, you would be grounded, you would feel more certain about who you are rather than depending on that external world to provide you that fabricated feelings of all that. That makes sense.
yeah. So
So
then I just think, how do you do that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can I
How do you
just-
do
Get
that?
there.
I
What's
need a
the
book.
first step or
Absolutely.
even the second step?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Yes.
So notice you feel this impulse to get, break free, right? Leave everything behind, find yourself, like radical in that direction, right?
Yeah.
That's where you feel expansion and hope. Then on the other side, you've got fear. If I do that, if I remain stuck, that feels like death. But I can't let go because if I do let go, I'll lose it all. So you've got yourself in a seesaw of polarization. But notice it's just the feeling of fear. And then your mind comes up with reasons. But are they true? And the truth is you don't know yet. You're stepping into unknown territory. And second of all, I just want to point out that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can set time aside each day to work on your most authentic self and then show up for your grandkids. You don't have to do anything radical. But you can begin that journey right where you are. And you can begin to face those fears and address what's really going on with you. And that's one reason Wendy and I wanted to do this, is because we need to be able to talk and get this stuff out. We're all suffering in silence alone.
Mhm.
And we don't have anyone to help us navigate it. But notice it's just fear. It's just fear. You're afraid to be yourself, and that you're not alone in that. I encounter that every time I have to grow.
Me too.
Every time. It's the same. I've done it enough times where I'm not as scared. I've gone far enough where I'm not as scared, but it still feels the same. It still feels like death.
Yeah. It does feel like death, and it's almost like, but I can't go back. Knowing what I know, I can't go back.
So how do you go forward? Like what
Mhm.
do you do? I mean, we could just exist, but like you said, you could spend time working on your authentic self. and then have time for your grandkids. But what do you do to work on that self? What do you, is there stuff to read? What do you try to find a replacement religion? I have no idea what to do, because I just know there's this emptiness sort of thing where there was this huge amount of religion, and now it's like I have no clue what to believe, because who knows? I know what's not true, but I'm like, what is true? I mean, I don't know what to think about Jesus, and I hate to just abandon everything. I mean, obviously I'm going to keep the morals because I think they're important in how I treat others and that kind of thing. But where do you even start?
I have great ideas.
I know, because you've done it. So you give us your info. Share the secrets.
Yeah, give it up. Come on.
Yeah. Give us an instruction manual.
And that's exactly what Wendy and I have been talking about. Exactly. And that is more than a 1 minute answer. That's a big question. But I think we're all facing that, if not Mormonism, then what?
Yeah.
And then to replace it with anything is pretty presumptuous. And we as more LDS understand that. Like, we're not going to prescribe what you should believe. We're going to offer models that you can try to work and see if they work for you. They've worked for us. And we found commonalities in various models, various golden threads in other religions, ancient wisdom traditions that correspond with modern neuroscience and psychology. And so but it can begin very simply by the key to all of this is to look within, not without. You can't tell yourself that enough. So what is it you're feeling? What is it you're fearing? What is it you're hoping? Get it out on paper. Get it out to somebody you trust. Just get it out of your head so you can see it and express the emotion that's trapped. From my perspective, we are infinite energetic beings, and we are trapped in a level of consciousness because we're not who we think we are. And undoing who we think we are to become who we are is the journey, is the path, is the process, it's the terror, it's the glory, it's the ecstasy. It's all of it. So I'm trying to answer your question as real and succinctly as I can because it's huge, but bottom line, it always comes back to the self. It doesn't come to any external authority. Your path to God is within. Anyone who tells you different wants something from you.
Yes, I agree with that. When we are going through this religious trauma, and you're both pretty fresh in this area, although I've had people on that have been out 30 years and they've continued to loop and rewound and loop and rewound, and they really have not made the leap into the life that they really that lights them up. They're still looping after 20, 30 years. And it happens, a couple of things. You're both in densely populated LDS environments. So you can either leave that environment, which is not what most people are capable of doing, or you can just honor that this is not your space anymore and realize that those people are still I say underwater only because I'm using the dragonfly analogy, but they're still in a different dimension that you can observe, and that you're actually grieving something that's still very much alive and in your face every day. That is not easy. But it's just as if you were leaving a relationship that you have been intimate with. You've shared every moment with them. You made every choice and decision based on how it would impact them. This is like leaving the church, but the church has been the lens in which you've seen your entire life, and your genetics have been imprinted that way. And so you're now taking off that lens, and it leaves a tremendous void. And that void feels uncomfortable. It's like, what do I do to fill this up? And unfortunately, a lot of people go and they leap into the ex-LDS world, but it's still the LDS world.
It's
And
just a
it's
mirror.
full of bitterness and resentment. But you know what? It's also filled with validation. People get me. And so
Yeah.
we can spin in that space for a while, but it doesn't give us the leap
Well-
into creating our new life.
Yeah, and I don't like all that hatred. I don't want that in my life.
It gets old.
Yeah.
It's not a positive thing. It's not going to help me grow as a person. So I don't want to be involved in that at all. I just
Yeah.
want to bypass that.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. But right now, what you're talking about is you're going through the sifting. You're saying,
Mhm.
what part of the church did I learn that I want to retain in my game, in my world? So you were born into a world where you had to learn the rules of the game.
Mhm.
And now you're awakening to where you are now creating a world based on your rules.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's almost like,
Yeah.
whoa,
So-
how audacious is that? And yes, to Amanda's point, it does look pretty damn selfish. But really, that's what we're here as sovereign beings. We get to live in this a beautiful earth where you've got all kinds of different simulations and scenarios going on, as many scenarios and simulations as there are people on the planet. And so if you're not the one operating it, then who the fuck is? The church would love to have you be its minions. The church would love to have you be its slave race that does everything and promotes them and their system. And
It gets
now
you
your
to pay
souls.
to do that.
Yeah, and we pay them to take away our sovereignty.
Well,
Wah! And
we
so
pay them
going to
10% to be a slave to them. They're awesome.
I know that's part of forgiving ourselves for not knowing any better, but it really is going through that sifting and writing down your feelings, like Todd was saying, actually pulls it out of your mind, and puts it on paper, gives it word. It's like you're pulling the virus, the coded virus out of your thinking mind for observation. So write down what I am feeling. The other thing is and I'm giving you action steps to make a list of what are my new values. What do I value most? You were conditioned to value obedience and your faith. Sacrifice, all these things were on the top rungs of your value system. If you onboarded to the church's value system, they gave you your values. And whenever your values were incongruent with theirs, they reminded us every Sunday. Yeah. And it was done by repetition to maintain that their preferred hierarchy of values. And so now it's you again. What are my values? My values shifted in church. They were sacrifice, obedience, my faith. And now I want to know the fucking truth. I want to know the truth. The truth on the church end was like somewhere down here. The truth isn't relevant. We need your obedience and your faith first. Now it's like, I want to know the truth. I want to live in integrity with my soul in full authentic expression. I want kindness. I want expansion and growth. Expansion and growth for women in the church is nowhere on the list. We don't care if you're expanding and growing. We just want you to be, serving us and using all that delicious feminine energy to prop up our structure, right? Now you get to reclaim all of that and put it in operation for you, your dream, and your goals. And that's what we're starting to fill that void with. Now it's like, what do I want? You've been taught that what you want is an enemy to God. You've been told that your soul is broken and a sinner. So of course you don't trust it. But what if you tap deeper inside and you realize I am a fractal of God? I am divine light. What I want matters. And it is my responsibility to bring that light forward. And when I do, not only Am I resonating and oscillating at my highest potent self? But it is impacting the world specifically and for no other reason than for my grandkids.
And their
That's
kids.
why I do it. And I know it looks like a total shit show right now for my kids. I get that they might want to keep their grandkids away till mom looks more stable to them. But it is in that transition, it's all, we have to honor that they're on their own journey too. And the more authentic you get, the more your kids want to know and they want to be involved. What is this transition? Because you are literally rewriting your genetic material. And whether or not they want it to impact them, they don't get to choose that. Because it will impact them. They get to choose how it will impact them, but you are reweaving genetic material and it will impact them, even at the subtlest levels, because their genetic material is still inside of you. It will never leave. And so that's what we as moms, that I think is so exciting, is when I rewrite and when I restructure, I'm not doing it just for me. My grandchildren's genetics are still present in my body.
Right.
I'm rewriting history.
And from a certain perspective, we're liberating our ancestors beyond us that have already lived, because they couldn't break through to this. This is our collective breaking through. But I just want to add, we're basically out of time, that anything that is held down by fear, doubt, guilt is something to be examined with an open eye.
Yeah.
All the things that you've been told why you can't be who you feel you need to be or want to explore. Notice the guilt, notice the fear, notice the belief you were taught, and then try and figure out what is the truth to you. And I promise you, the truth will always lead you to a greater expansion of love and courage and compassion and curiosity.
Yeah. And that means we have to get comfortable with the mystery and not knowing. We have to embrace uncertainty, and we're conditioned to embrace the certainty of the gospel. So two things that you can do right away is reestablish your values. Pull out your thoughts, emotions, and feelings, write them down. And the third one is, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And realize that your training and your conditioning it's going to affect your nervous system. And this is one of the first things that Todd and I want to create a video on, is how do I recondition my nervous system? How do I confront that? How do I bring expansion when I'm feeling like I don't know where to go and all this is triggering every trauma response in my body? So that is an important piece. Was this helpful for you?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Reach out. I have, for me, I do a 20-minute next steps call. I do for $20 for people who are members in the group. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do that, but I just really want to help people get to their next level. And sometimes I need to know their individual things that are going on for them. What we have in the works is Todd and I are creating a course that will help, what Lisa was talking about. What are my action steps? How do I get out of here? What's going on inside of me? So that you do feel like you're getting a clear course out of the darkness, but not being the authority of your life. What I want for people, the most thing I want, is to come out of the cave a sovereign being, and knowing your inner compass and your inner authority is you. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lisa, your question is what burns in Wendy's heart and mind and mine. We have so many conversations on this exact issue of how to approach people at different levels with different beliefs, but lead them on a path that works. And that, I just want to thank everyone for coming on and sharing, because it does help us solidify where people are at, to where we can meet them, where we can help them. And it's an honor to be a part of your journey as you work this stuff out. It feels really difficult. We want to take the loneliness and the unnecessary suffering out of it. It's difficult. There's no getting around it. It's painful and difficult, but it can be pretty exciting too. It can be extremely rewarding. There's everything you've ever truly wanted is on the other side of fear.
Yeah. And you're right. And you're right at the doorstep. So very cool. Thank you so much. And we're going to do this probably to the end of November. We'll see how it goes. Collecting information, wanting to help and support any of the members of the group who are looking for that, but also keep an eye out for our upcoming courses and other, some things will be free, some things there'll be an investment, but we're really passionate and excited about helping people through this space, because our world needs us to show up in our authentic, powerful space. And we just make everything better that way.
And just one quick add, if you found this helpful and you know anyone else that would find this kind of stuff helpful, pass the word along, get them on.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Well,
there's more than 3 of us dealing with this,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good Sunday. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks. Bye.